got some unique demonstrations to show you today that are going to be able to allow you to hear and see the differences between utilizing a smaller speaker with a pair of subs or a pair of smaller speakers on their own playing full range. And when we add the subs, you're going to hear that the volume of the mid-range and treble does not change, but the tonality and clarity of the mid-range gets better as we take 100 hertz and down off of the 6-inch drivers of the Paradigm 40Bs bookshelf monitors. We're utilizing our Dominion 110, and in the gloss finishes that we have them displayed today, they're $1,200 each. You can get them in an ash finish for $100 less, so $1,100. So if you add, say, $2,200 up, that's about the price of these speakers. So it's a very commensurately priced system between subwoofers and speakers. This is a 6-inch two-way, which means that the mid-bass driver is normally, when you hear it full range today, is trying to play everything down to as low as it naturally rolls off, while playing everything in the mid-range up to the tweeter point, which in this speaker is about 2,300 hertz. So when we remove the lowest 2 octaves, 100 and down, it's actually a little bit more than the lowest 2 octaves, you're going to hear a dramatic improvement in mid-range clarity, because we're no longer shaking that person singing back and forth with the low frequencies that are in the recording. They're now being purposely played by the subwoofers, which were designed to do so. So listen for the A-B comparisons that we're going to give you, and this first one's going to be a female vocal singing, and you will hear that her voice doesn't change in volume, but it changes in clarity when we add the subs. Now, obviously, you'll hear more bass response. These woofers are literally playing the same bass that these subs are playing, but they're just rolled off naturally to a point because it's at the limits of their capability, and you're not hearing it. So as we add the subs that are designed to play it, you're hearing true full range sound. All right? So real quick, after we go through those first couple tracks, the first couple tracks are going to be, again, not a lot of bass. You know, they're going to show the difference in vocals. We want to point out we're not adding additional bass. We're revealing what's in the recording. So you'll see that. And for you guys in the front, you're going to have an overall pretty balanced experience. For you guys in the back, you're going to have a bit more bass because you're closer to that wall. So it is a little hotter back there. We acknowledge that. If we're up here, it's a bit more balanced. So just keep that in mind. You'd be better off standing here, by the way.
Oh, okay.
If anybody's watching this after, keep in mind audio demos are best in person.
Your imaging will.
Over video
Here,
demos
your
are
bass
not quite the
balance
same,
will be
so you
much
may not
better.
get the same experience, but we're glad you're here, so thank you. All right, so after we go through those first couple tracks, we're going to jump into a measurement demonstration of our software and how we got to the point we did with the subwoofers, where they are, and then we'll finish up with some bigger bass tracks at the end, so we'll send you guys out with a bang, if you will. So, all right, I'm going to jump into this first track.
Of life is in your eyes, the look your heart can disguise, the look of love is saying so much more than just words dare say. And what my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you, now that I've found you.
Were you able to pick up on that difference?
Just a little bit.
So at low frequency, obviously there's a lot more energy, so that's noticeable. The vocal didn't really change much in tonality because the female vocal's voice is kind of above where we're crossing over the subwoofer. But in the next track that we play with the male vocal, it's going to be far more obvious. You're going to hear a difference in his vocal change when we engage the subwoofers because again, we're playing it louder. These speakers are playing it just really low and level. So,
The octaves that he's singing in reach a little bit lower, so you will hear a tonality change on Kevin mode.
and also in this track, pay attention to the foot, the step, as he's stepping on the drum.
Let me start this one again. You want to hear this one again? Kick with his foot.
I got a suitcase. I take it everywhere I go. I got a suitcase, baby. I take it everywhere I go. It's just a big old bag of trouble. Trouble's all I know. I met a girl, fell in love, and our love was true.
Listen to the size of the kick drum.
I met a girl, fell in love. Oh, our love was true. Well, and I found out, Lord, she had a big old suitcase too. So
That difference is pretty obvious, huh? Not only do you get that improvement in low frequency, but you hear it in his voice. It's obvious when the subwoofers are on. And as noted in the previous track, we're not adding extra bass. This is just revealing what's already there. The amount of bass is up to you. So each subwoofer has a level control. If you say the bass is a little hot for me, turn it down. If you want more bass, turn it up. That's up to you. So we're going to jump into a measurement demonstration here and kind of explain how we got to the point that we did. So you might notice right away that the subwoofers are in the far corners in this room. Okay, and there's obviously several locations that we could have put them in this room. How did we get there? Randy gets calls all the time. Hey, Randy, where should I put my subwoofer? Should it be inside the speaker or outside the speaker? And so in this case, anyone ever hear the crawl test? Okay, we got a couple. So if you don't know what the crawl test is, I'll explain. Basically, you take the subwoofer and put it in the listening position. Then you play some bass heavy music and crawl around the room like, okay, yeah, it's better here. And then over here, no, it's not as good here. And you go through those and find the areas in the room that work the best by ear. Now, that's a great approach if you don't have any tools to measure with. So it kind of gives you a reciprocal effect. If you take the subwoofer out of the chair and put it back in this position, you'll get a similar effect. It's not perfectly one-to-one, but it gets you really close. So what we do is a bit more scientific. We take our microphone, which this little Dayton microphone here, it's about $100. And you can either use one of these or maybe a mini DSP U-Mic 1. And you can connect it to our free JL Audio Tune software, which gives you the capability to take some measurements. So first and foremost, the software is free to download. You can go to www.jlaudio.com/tune and download that. Originally, we designed Tune to control some of our digital signal processors in the mobile and marine market. But in the 2021 or so, we added the measurement capability to the software. So it's an audio measurement software. You can measure anything from a sound system to a thunderstorm, whatever you want. So it's not proprietary to JL Audio. It is our software, but you can use it with any audio system. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how we ended up here. I'm going to show you the data that we captured at this position. So we put the microphone now in the listening chair. We have the subwoofer measurements. I'm going to explain this graph and then I'm going to pull up the data. So this graph is an RTA. It stands for real-time analyzer. And the x-axis here, the horizontal axis, represents frequency, and that's measured in hertz. So that's how many times did the speaker move back and forth per second, right? The y-axis of the graph is amplitude measured in decibels. So we're talking about how loud it is. So the frequency response is going to show us how loud each frequency is. Okay. So let me pull up the data here. So we captured two measurements here, the front left, which is orange, and then we turned that one off and we captured the front right, which is yellow. So we have these two traces, and you might look at that and say, wow, what are all those peaks and dips? Doesn't JL Audio make good equipment? Well, of course we do. If you take this microphone and you put it right up to that subwoofer, it'll be a nice, smooth, and linear response. All these peaks and dips that you see are caused by the room acoustics. You took the subwoofer and you put it into an environment, and now we're measuring what happened in that environment when you're playing the subwoofer. So what happens is, let me explain. The sound from this subwoofer leaves the speaker. It comes up to the listening position, which is right where you are, Mark, and then it captures that data. It's live, so it's seeing that data. The sound continues past Mark, hits the back wall, and then bounces off that wall and comes back to the listening position again. When it bounces back, that reflection, it's the same frequency coming back, but later in time. Okay, so if it's later in time, it's not in sync with the first one. That means that we're going to have this pattern that you see where some areas, some frequencies will get constructive interference, where you get a boost or a peak in the response, and some areas you'll get a destructive interference, like these cancellations that you see. So what do you do about that? Can we get rid of that? And that's reality. That's what happens when you take a subwoofer and you put it in a room, or any speaker for that matter. The room will contribute to the measurement. So we also have these sound panels. And these sound panels are pretty cool, right? We've seen these before. At high frequency, they're very, very effective. Especially these panels here, they're great for high frequency. But as you get lower in frequency, the wavelengths become much bigger. So as you get lower, the wavelengths travel further. So that's why when we play loud bass here, a couple rooms down, you can hear it because it's pretty loud and the wavelengths travel. So in order to absorb those wavelengths, you would need a really, really big panel that's probably feet in length at some of these frequencies. So if we can't use sound panels, we're kind of stuck. That's about where we end. This is the left and right response. Of course, if you have some sort of processor, you can always pull peaks down and improve the overall response. But here we're just showing you the raw data. So the next question, if this is our left and right, what happens when we sum the two together? When we play both subwoofers at the same time, what do we get? And what we want to know is, in a perfect world, we'd get about 6 dB when we play them together. So let's see what we get. Go ahead and engage that one. All right, so at low frequency, it looks fantastic. We get about 6 dB here from 20 hertz all the way up to almost 40 hertz. But then it falls and it drops to this big cancellation. Why is that? The subwoofers are in the same position relative to the listening position, equidistant, and the settings for both subwoofers are the same as far as the timeline. What's actually happening is one of the subwoofers is traveling a different distance as far as the frequency. So it's going maybe, let's just assume this subwoofer is playing a long frequency that goes all the way to that door back there, bounces off that door and comes back to the listening position at a different time than this subwoofer bounces off something else and comes back. So the two wavelengths at that frequency are not in sync with each other, which caused this big cancellation in our response. So how do we fix that? Because now we have a problem that's caused by the room. We know we can't fix it with sound panels. And we already positioned our subwoofers purposely here. The next best thing is what we've done in this room, which is we've added a third subwoofer. If you look in the back corner of the room, you'll find another Dominion subwoofer, a 10-inch subwoofer, in the corner. Now, you haven't heard that yet. What you've listened to so far is just the front subwoofers. Let me show you what adding the rear subwoofer does.
You've been listening to the blue curve.
So we're going to get
that
rid of
big null at 55 hertz right in the center of the bass response.
We're going to get rid of the individuals, and I'm going to show the rear subwoofer. So notice here, at low frequency, the rear subwoofer doesn't contribute very much. And that's okay. We have plenty of low frequency content from the front speakers. We need it to contribute here, right? So now, that's what it measured by itself. If we properly integrate the rear subwoofer with the front, using some of the distance settings on the unit, the Anthem unit, as well as the phase control and polarity switch on the unit in the rear, we can then get the sum of these three, which is this purple trace. And you'll see the purple trace, that's a much bigger improvement than this. And so that purple trace compared to the blue at that frequency, it's a 15 dB difference. That's massive. That's a huge improvement. Now, one thing to note, the purple is assuming all three subwoofers are at the same level. They're not. In this system, it's a 2-channel system. We want all the imaging to present like it's up front in the room. So we turn down the rear subwoofer so it's not as obvious that there's another subwoofer in the back. So it's augmenting the front subwoofers, not taking over. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in the third subwoofer, and we're going to play 2 more tracks that are much more bass heavy. And the first thing I want you to notice on this Chris Stapleton track that we play is how life-size the image is, and how defined the bass is, and how overall the quality of the bass at low frequency, how it improved compared to before.
How are you going to integrate the third subwoofer in a 2-channel system?
We'll touch on that in a bit. Let's play these tracks, and I'll be
Okay.
happy to answer that
All right.
question for you. Let me plug this in real quick. All right, Randy, you got it?
Mhm.
The place where you're sitting, way up high. I can't look up enough to see the sky. There ain't no good light here below the road. The road. Don't want no preacher man to come around. I don't need him to lay my burden down. I already told Jesus.
So did you notice how big that image was in that presentation? Chris Stapleton's life size. He's not a tiny little image by the laptop. He's big. And by adding those subwoofers and integrating them properly, we're able to get that enveloping bass that fills the room and gives you a sense of space. When you lose that, everything kind of shrinks and gets smaller. And that's no detriment to these speakers. These are fantastic speakers. These mid-range speakers are not designed to do what that subwoofer is designed to do.
They're just going to roll off sooner than obviously a powered subwoofer is. So we're creating a very large speaker out of a pair of very small speakers by adding a pair of subwoofers in this case, and then correcting their room with the third one.
I just want to add one quick thing. There's other additional benefits by having multiple subwoofers. We not only get an improvement to the frequency response, we also have the ability to turn all of the subwoofers down and level because we have more of them, which increases reliability of the product because you're not stressing it as hard, you're not pushing it as hard, as well as improves your dynamic range capability so you can play the quietest passages or the loudest passages up here.
And when the combs on your speakers aren't moving in and out as far away from the at-rest position, then you have what's called faster drivers because they're not having to go as far to reach peak amplitude and they're not having to come from as far away to come to a stop. So when people talk about fast woofers, they're not really totally understanding the definition of the term. They think, well, it's a lightweight small cone, it'll be quick. Well, what real speed is all about is getting to peak amplitude and coming to a dead stop faster than another driver. That's what's going to give you
Is
that.
it not covering the same distance? Is
Right.
that what
You're
you
not
need
moving
it
out-
to
yeah.
cover the same
Yeah.
distance?
Now, we're going to show you on this next cut these subwoofers moving 2 inches or more simply because it's on the record and we're playing it loud. Okay? But the point is that if you use multiple drivers, then the gains are going to be turned down on the subs. So they'd be moving even further. All right? One other thing that's a cool trick too is if you are willing to do acoustic treatment in your room, I put up 9 panels in my listening space, and my noise floor, I measured prior and after the panels went up, air conditioning off, ceiling fan not playing, and I went down almost 10 dB in noise floor just simply by treating the room. Well, wait a minute. If I'm 10 dB quieter in the room, that's a 10 dB increase in dynamic range when there's nothing happening. The silence is, that's a big deal, right?
That's a big.
Right. Are you kidding me? So, because dynamic range is the difference between the loudest loud and the quietest quiet. Well, I got that 10 dB by going quieter, right? When it's not energized.
And lastly, what Randy was talking about when he was referring to how fast the cone of the speaker moves out to peak excursion, back to rest, that's called transient response.
Right. I get that all the time when somebody says, wouldn't a smaller driver be faster? And I say, because it has less mass. That's the theory, right? Well, I'll respond. If you had a Corvette and a Volkswagen Bug driving side by side on the interstate at 70 miles an hour, which one's going faster? Well, neither. They're both doing 70 miles an hour. Well, if I got a 12-inch woofer and an 8-inch woofer and they're both playing 60 cycles per second, which one's going faster? Neither. They're both doing 60 cycles per second or 60 hertz. But one has the ability on the Corvette to start and get to peak amplitude, in this case, to get to the 70 miles an hour faster. And because it's got bigger brakes, it'll come to a stop quicker than the Volkswagen Bug. And the same thing when you have the ability to turn the gain controls down on your multiple subwoofers, you're not having to go as far, so they get to peak amplitude quicker and they come to a stop faster because they're not going as far away. With all that being said, when you put the kind of bass that this cut's got on it, because it's electronic bass, and you play it at the volume levels we're playing, which is about 100 dB, you're going to watch that logo on the JL cone elongate over 2 inches. You'll just see the logo become a tube that's 2 inches long. I didn't have that one. I had the other one. The story here is that you can actually get very big speaker sound out of stand mount small speakers if you augment them correctly and integrate them correctly, both in volume and phase alignment with the speakers and a pair of subs. The reason we added a third sub is it's such an unusual room, and we were able to give more of an acoustic balance by doing so, and in many cases create more than one sweet spot in the room. Okay? If you're going to use, when most people ask us in technical support, what's the best subwoofer for my room and my system? The correct answer is 2 of the best subs that fit your budget for subwoofer purchase. If you're in home theater, you can put them in different places in the room, at least one up in the front third, and you may put one somewhere else, or you may put them both up front. But if music's really important to you, and it's a stereo system or a home surround system with an emphasis on music, keeping both subs in the front half of the room is probably going to be your best bet, so that anytime the bass players in the music go below the crossover frequency, they're not shifting where the sub is. Okay, if we hadn't time aligned that sub so well and got the gain down on that back sub, you'd be localizing it a lot more. Now, you probably were hearing it because of the proximity effect of where you're sitting. They weren't. I couldn't hear that sub sitting on his stool, but I could tell that there was some more even pressure in the room.
So also keep in mind the improvement by adding multiple subwoofers, the dynamic range, the reliability factor, the better overall response in your room, more balanced for all positions. So that's a really good point. And we appreciate you guys coming to the JL Audio room to check out what we have to offer at Audio Advice Live 2024. If you need any help from Randy or our technical support team, you can always reach out to Randy at technical@jlaudio.com. He's an expert when it comes to this stuff. And if you have any other questions about subwoofer integration, you can reference our YouTube videos that show home subwoofer integration. Just go to YouTube and search JL Audio home subwoofer integration. You'll find the videos. You can see how to use Tune software, get your system to the next level.
And we're not opposed to helping people that don't have our subwoofers, because we figure if we can help you get your system to sound better, you'll remember where it came from. And hopefully if you're adding another sub or replacing your subs, you'll think of us. But we can help you over the phone. And once you've got the concept of our integration techniques, we are able to send you a non-published white paper in a bullet point format that is easy to follow, and all it will require, if you don't have the advantage of this kind of test equipment and software, all you'll need is to be able to measure sound pressure level with either an app for your phone or an actual SPL meter, and the ability to play a sine wave test tone on your system. But we can certainly make improvements on 90% of most people's systems just by those phone calls. I don't send out the white papers unless we've gone over the procedure, because it just eliminates all the questions that you might have. It's not a hard procedure to follow, but it's unorthodox. And so there's usually, you want me to hook something up backwards on purpose? So we eliminate that question in a phone call.
Love it.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
That third subwoofer.